Many cultures around our world tell stories about great floods. These tales come from different times and faraway places. They often share common ideas and striking similarities. A huge, destructive flood often covers the entire land. In these stories, only a few people or animals manage to survive. These survivors usually escape the waters by building and using a boat. These ancient stories are very powerful and hold deep meaning. They have been passed down through many generations. People today still find these flood narratives quite fascinating. They make us wonder about our distant past and early human experiences. The enduring fascination with flood myths is understandable. These stories speak to fundamental human experiences and fears. They often explore themes of destruction and renewal. They also touch upon ideas of divine anger and human survival. Floods are a powerful and often terrifying force of nature. Early societies living near rivers or coastlines would have known their danger well. These narratives could have served as warnings. They might also have been ways to explain catastrophic events. Remembering such events would be vital for a community's resilience. These tales connect us to our ancestors' struggles. You can find flood stories in many ancient traditions. The story of Noah and his ark in the Hebrew Bible is very famous. Before that, the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh told of a great flood. Utnapishtim was the hero who survived this earlier deluge. In India, the Matsya Purana describes Manu surviving a world-ending flood. He was warned by a fish, an avatar of Vishnu. Similar stories exist in Greek mythology with Deucalion and Pyrrha. Indigenous cultures across the Americas, Australia and Asia also have their own flood legends. Each story is unique, but shares that core theme of a great inundation. These widespread stories lead to an important question. Are they purely imaginative myths created by ancient peoples? Or could they be distant memories of real, devastating floods? Perhaps these events were so impactful they became etched in cultural memory. Geologists and archaeologists look for clues to answer this. They study the earth and ancient sites for evidence. Science tries to understand if such massive floods actually happened. It seeks to find out what kind of floods they might have been. The mystery connects ancient storytelling to modern scientific investigation. We want to know if the rocks hold secrets to these legends. Geologists look for specific types of evidence in the ground. They search for clues that might confirm ancient flood events. The most important clues are often found in layers of sediment. These layers are like pages in Earth's history book. A very large flood would leave a distinct mark. It would deposit a unique layer of mud, sand, or gravel. This layer would be different from the layers above and below it. Geologists carefully examine these sequences in rock outcrops or through drilling cores. They look for unusual deposits that don't fit the normal pattern. Such deposits could signal a rapid, high-energy water event from the past. Different kinds of sediments can tell us about a flood's power. Fine-grained mud might settle out from slow-moving floodwaters. Coarser sand and gravel suggest a much more powerful, fast-moving flood. Sometimes a flood layer might contain a jumble of debris. This could include broken rocks, plant matter, or even animal bones. The thickness of such a layer can also give clues. A very thick layer might indicate a very large or long-lasting flood. Geologists also look for signs of erosion beneath the flood deposit. A powerful flood could scour the land surface before depositing new material. These features help reconstruct the flood's characteristics. Dating these geological layers is crucial for understanding flood events. Scientists use several methods to find out when a flood might have happened. Radiocarbon dating can be used if the flood layer contains organic material. This could be wood, shells, or other formerly living things. Other methods, like optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, can date the sediment itself. OSL tells us when mineral grains like quartz were last exposed to sunlight. By dating the layers accurately, geologists can try to match them. They compare them with historical records or archaeological findings. This helps to see if a specific geological flood aligns with a known myth. However, finding clear geological evidence for a single worldwide flood is very difficult. Most scientific findings point towards regional, not global, flood events. Geologists have found evidence for many large, localized floods in Earth's past. These floods were certainly catastrophic for the people who experienced them. But the idea of one flood covering the entire planet at the same time lacks scientific support. The sheer volume of water needed is one major problem. Another is the lack of a globally consistent flood deposit. The rocks tell stories of many floods, but not one single all-encompassing deluge. The region of Mesopotamia, known as the land between the rivers, is a key area. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers flow through this land. These rivers were essential for ancient civilizations like Sumer and Akkad. However, these rivers could also bring destructive floods. Spring thaws in the mountains or heavy rains could cause them to overflow. Archaeological digs in Mesopotamian cities have found flood deposits. Sir Leonard Woolley found a thick mud layer at Ur in the 1920s. He initially thought it was evidence of Noah's flood. This region's history is full of river floods, big and small. The flood layers found in Mesopotamia are significant. Some are several meters thick, suggesting very large inundations. These floods would have been devastating for the people living there. They could have wiped out settlements and agricultural lands. It is very likely that these real repeated flood events inspired flood stories. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known literary works, describes a massive flood. This story has many parallels with the later biblical account of Noah. The memory of terrible local floods passed down through generations could easily have grown into grander legends of a world-destroying event. These were real events impacting real people. Another type of catastrophic flood occurred during the end of the last ice age. These were known as glacial lake outburst floods. As massive ice sheets melted, they sometimes formed huge lakes. These lakes were dammed by ice or by moraines, which are ridges of rock and debris. Sometimes these natural dams would suddenly break. When they failed, enormous volumes of water were released very quickly. These floods were incredibly powerful and could reshape landscapes in days or weeks. They carved deep canyons and moved giant boulders. The scale of these events is hard to imagine today. The Missoula floods in North America are a prime example of such events. These happened many times between about 15,000 and 13,000 years ago. Glacial Lake Missoula was a huge lake in what is now Montana. It was dammed by a lobe of the Cordilleran ice sheet. This ice dam repeatedly failed, releasing torrents of water. These floods swept across Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. They carved out the channeled scablands, a unique and dramatic landscape. Such immense and sudden floods would surely have been witnessed by early inhabitants. Their terrifying power could easily have become the basis for powerful myths and legends in those regions. Section 4, the Black Sea's Great Flood, a theory under the microscope. One intriguing scientific idea is the Black Sea deluge hypothesis. This theory was proposed by geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman in the 1990s. They suggested that the Black Sea was once a much smaller freshwater lake. This was during the last ice age when global sea levels were lower. According to their hypothesis, this freshwater lake was isolated from the Mediterranean Sea. The land bridge of the Bosporus Strait acted as a dam. This separation kept the salty Mediterranean waters out for a long time. The people living around the lake enjoyed a stable environment. The core of Ryan and Pittman's theory is a dramatic event. They proposed that around 7,600 years ago, or 5600 BCE, the rising Mediterranean Sea breached the Bosporus. Salt water then poured into the freshwater Black Sea basin with immense force. They described it as a catastrophic flood. The water level in the Black Sea rose rapidly, perhaps by many meters a day. This sudden inundation would have flooded vast areas of the former coastline. It would have displaced any populations living there. The sound of the water rushing through the Bosporus would have been like a giant waterfall, roaring for months. This event would have transformed the Black Sea's ecosystem. Evidence supporting the Black Sea deluge hypothesis includes several findings. Ryan and Pittman studied sediment cores from the Black Sea floor. They found a distinct layer marking a change from freshwater to saltwater conditions. They also used sonar to map the old shoreline of the freshwater lake. They found what appeared to be submerged river valleys and dunes. Some researchers even reported finding evidence of human habitation. These were found on this now submerged shelf. The sudden appearance of Mediterranean mollusk species in the Black Sea sediments also supports a rapid change. The story presented was compelling and gained much attention. However, the Black Sea deluge hypothesis is still debated by scientists. Some researchers suggest the connection was not so catastrophic. They argue the inflow of Mediterranean water might have been more gradual, or perhaps it happened earlier, or in several smaller events. Studies of sediment layers and microfossils have produced conflicting dates and interpretations. Some evidence points to a slower, less dramatic rise in water levels. The extent of the flooding and its impact on human populations are also debated. While a significant marine connection did occur, its exact nature and timing remain subjects of ongoing research. The idea of a single massive flood event is not universally accepted. Section 5. Rising tides and ancestral tales: how changing coasts shaped myths. At the end of the last ice age, about 20,000 years ago, huge ice sheets covered large parts of Earth. As the climate warmed, this massive amount of ice began to melt. This melting process continued for thousands of years. The water from these melting glaciers and ice sheets flowed into the oceans. As a result, global sea levels rose significantly. Scientists estimate that sea levels rose by about 120 meters, or around 390 feet in total. This was not a sudden event, but a gradual rise. It unfolded over many millennia, profoundly changing coastlines around the world. This slow but relentless rise in sea level had a huge impact on coastal environments. Areas that were once dry land became submerged. River valleys near the coast turned into estuaries and bays. Islands were separated from mainlands, and new islands were formed. For people living in coastal regions, this was a dramatic change to their world. Their hunting grounds, villages, and sacred sites would have slowly disappeared under the rising waters. They would have been forced to move inland generation after generation. This process, though slow, would have been a constant pressure and a source of insecurity. It is very likely that these experiences of slowly losing land to the sea contributed to flood myths. Imagine watching the ocean creep closer each year. Familiar landmarks would vanish beneath the waves. This would be a powerful and unsettling experience. These memories of lost lands, passed down through oral traditions, could have evolved over time. They might have become stories of great floods sent by gods or nature. The gradual loss of an entire homeland could easily be dramatized in myth as a single catastrophic event. This provides a direct link between geological processes and cultural storytelling. The drowning of lands like Doggerland in the North Sea is a real example. In conclusion, many ancient flood myths likely have roots in real geological events. Geologists find evidence for large regional floods in river valleys like Mesopotamia. Catastrophic glacial outburst floods, such as the Missoula floods, also occurred. The Black Sea may have experienced a significant marine inundation. Furthermore, the slow rise of sea levels after the last ice age submerged vast coastal areas. These events were deeply impactful for the people who witnessed them. Their memories passed down could have transformed into the epic flood legends we know today. However, scientific evidence does not support a single, simultaneous global flood. Instead, it points to many different, powerful, localized water disasters shaping human memory and myth.